Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome once again to a very special edition of Sound Off Louisiana. Now most of the time, in fact virtually every time, we deal with some element of problematic activities within Louisiana state government. But I am, as the title of the feature said, exercising a point of personal privilege. And I'm doing that because I want to give the biggest accolades I know how to the Baylor University's ophthalmology department. These folks are phenomenal. They are on the leading edge of dealing with people who pose challenges, such as myself, with, with regard to their eyesight. So let me give you, let me just say this. When I first formed the blog, I made a commitment that I would not accept any advertising. I would not go out and give plugs for any commercial activity because I want to keep this blog completely independent and giving me the authority to not have anyone saying, well, you did that because you were beholden to this commercial entity or that commercial entity. And I also do not take subscriptions. I don't take contributions for this blog. There is no subscribership fee, and I want to emphasize what I'm doing today does not change that. And the reason for that is because Baylor University Medical Center is a not-for-profit entity. So I'm not violating my commitment in that regard. It would be no different than if I come before you to tout leading-edge technology at my own alma mater, LSU. But I will always have a very special place in my heart for Baylor University for what they've been able to do for me over the last few weeks. You may recall that toward the end of June I said I'd be boarding a plane and I would not be back for about 2.5 weeks, and the reason for that is I was at Baylor University Medical Center, specifically their ophthalmology department, and we're going to give you a link for it. But let me give you a little bit of background on me so you can know what led up to this. At the age of 6 years old, when I was in first grade, it became very obvious I had been diagnosed that my eyesight was extremely poor. And I had to be fitted with the Coke bottle size glasses even in the first grade. And my vision got progressively worse as I aged, and so I would get even larger prescription glasses. At one point, and this was probably my, I don't know, 9th grade, 10th grade, my vision finally flattened out because it had gotten about as bad as you can possibly get. And my vision was 24/40. For those of you who may not be familiar with what those numbers mean, you always hear somebody's got 20/20 vision. That means what a normal person who views as being 20 feet away would appear to me to be 440 feet away. So you can get a grasp of just how bad that is. I certainly fit the definition of being legally blind. And if anybody encountered me without my contact, well, I couldn't wear contacts. I'll get to that. And I'll just go ahead and say that now. Contacts would not work for me. I should have said glasses. If anybody encountered me without my glasses, they would know that I don't have a clue who you are unless you start speaking, unless you're literally right up in my face. It was that bad. And so in 1985, when I was 22 years old, there came a procedure that was at that time all the rave. The procedure is called radial keratotomy, or RK for short. And it touted that no matter how bad your vision, you could go in and have this surgery performed. And what they do is, or what they did, this is no longer done, would supplementally be upgraded with a LASIK surgery, but back then they would make 8 incisions, literally taking a razor and making the incisions into the eye to change the trajectory when light rays meet the cornea and thereby project it to the retina to where you would have not necessarily 20/20 vision, but in my case about 20, and I did it. I was one of the early ones. I said, by gosh, I want to do this. My doctor that performed the procedure had actually gone to Russia for training because it's my understanding that's where it was initially developed. And And so I had the procedure done in 1985. And I want to say this, the procedure was a success. The doctor, extremely talented, and he gave me 20 years. Now hear what I'm saying. He gave me 20 years where I didn't need glasses or contacts, and I had about 20/35 vision, give or take. Probably 20/35 in the right eye and maybe 20/50 in the left eye. Trust me, compared to 24/40, you feel like you're doing darn well. Now, the only problem is that, as has been determined through these years, RK surgery tends to fade. My doctor back then likened it to an elderly person's skin, and he said what doing RK did was literally pull up and tighten the skin, and he said, but gradually over time it tends to fade back. And that was the case for me. And so in 2004, which is now 19 years ago, I found myself in need of contacts, and the good news is I could wear contacts. Now, I had to wear the hard lens, gas permeable variety. That's the only contacts that would work. And by the way, now glasses are useless. I could not wear, and still cannot, glasses will not do anything for me, period. And there's nothing that can be done about that. That's just another effect of RK. Only contacts will work. So I began wearing gas permeable contacts in 2004, and the big problem with gas permeable contacts, and that's especially true here in Louisiana, is that if an allergen, and you see the pollens when they come, if it flies into that contact, and those of you who wear them will know what I mean, it will literally burn so bad you can't take it. I know I can't, and I have a pretty strong tolerance, but no way. But I didn't have any, or at least I thought, and that's one of the main reasons I'm doing this video. I thought I had no other choice. So let's fast forward from 2004 to September the 5th of 2020. That's a day I will never forget the rest of my life. September 5th, 2020. It was a Friday. I woke up the next morning and I did not know what was wrong, but I could not see anything out of my left eye. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. It was like the most dense fog you've ever seen in your life. And it was not dissipating one iota. And what was really bad is that was Labor Day weekend. So I wake up on a Saturday morning and I've got this massive fog on my left eye, and I don't know what's wrong. And you would know these kinds of things happen, not just on a weekend, but the beginning of, and not just a 2-day weekend, but a 3-day weekend. So September 6th, September 7th, I'm sorry, I must have missed up the dates because I know the first Monday, September 7th was the Monday. The 5th was a Saturday. September 5th, which was Saturday morning, that's when I discovered it. I couldn't miss it. Sunday, September 6th, and Monday, September the 7th. My anxiety level was through the roof, waiting. This is 3 days that my eye's been in this condition now, and I was anxiously waiting to call my ophthalmologist and get an appointment scheduled as fast as possible to find out what was going on here. So on Tuesday, which would have been 5th, 6th, 8th, Tuesday the 8th, my regular ophthalmologist was not in, but they fit me in with another fine ophthalmologist, and he took a look at it and he said, there's no infection in this eye, which is good news, make no mistake, but it baffled him as to what could be the problem. And so we went for 2 days. He had me put some steroid eye drops in, and he said, let's come in and let's check it again in 2 days, which would have been Wednesday the 10th. Wednesday, September 10th. Happened to be my birthday, and it's also happened to be the day that the Ronald Green feature, the day that I chose to release it. which I'd been working on for some time, but be that as it may, I had to use just one eye because I certainly couldn't see anything out of my left eye, nothing. So when I went back in on September the 10th, he said, look, I really think what we need to do is to refer you to a cornea specialist. He said, because, he said, we have got to get this under control because he said, my eye had been, it was flooded. I mean, it was flooded. And he said, it does become like a ship or a boat. And he said, we're trying to use a bucket to get the water out. That's what the steroid eye drops were for. But he said, we've not made any progress, or so little that it is negligible. And he said, what will happen here is if we can't get it under control, it will become so flooded that, just like a boat, once it gets so much water in there, it's going to sink. And he said, and at that point, your eye will no longer be recoverable. And so he did refer me to a cornea specialist at Eye Medical Center. That's where all of my ophthalmologists are either. And I'm not giving a plug there, it's just informational only. They're fantastic ophthalmologists, every one of them. I have nothing but praise for them, but I only mention them because that's where I go. And so he did refer me, and I'm going to give this doctor's name out because I really, truly admire him very much. His name is Dr. Devin Tran, D-E-V-I-N, last name T-R-A-N. And the reason I'm so thankful that I got referred to him is, you know, some people are apprehensive about a young doctor. When I walked into his office, he was 32 years old. He's now 33. Well, I'm sorry, it's been if you get it, that was 3 years ago. So he was young. And he too was baffled. And he said, there's no infection. And so he brought in a seasoned veteran. I mean, by the way, these two gentlemen, that's all they do is the cornea. And his name is Dr. Heichel. And he looked at it and he said, boy, this is really baffling what happened here. And they had me go to another machine, and Dr. Heichel speculated, and he admitted it's speculation. He said the fact that there is no infection in this eye, which is a very good thing, he said, I can only assume that probably one of your incisions from when you had RK surgery way back in 1985, we're going back almost 30 years, he said, I am surmising that likely one of them tore. And he said, and that commenced to immediately flood the eye. And he said, I see no reason that this eye can't heal itself, but it's going to be a protracted period. And so they had me continue using the steroid eye drops. I did my own research, and Dr. Tran kept me abreast. Dr. Tran said he had seen it drag out for as long as 7 months. And also he had told me that you only have a certain number of cells that normally don't do anything, but they're called into action to dry the eye out. And the steroid eye drops, I had to put them in every 3 hours, and for me, it took almost 9 months. Hear what I'm saying? It was not until April of 2021 that the entire mass of flooding got all cleared out. Now, there was steady progress along the way, because Dr. Tran would show me the photos of the progress that was being made, and it was slow. But praise God, and I give God all the glory for this, in April of 2021, I no longer had any flooding of my eye. And Dr. Tran was very candid with me. He said from the outset, Robert, I didn't know if we could save your eye or not. And I told him, I said, you think I couldn't surmise that from your body language and from the questions I posed, and him not being willing to commit as to whether it would ever dry up. I'm sorry I'm getting a little emotional, but my eyes are very special to me. So in April of 2021, praise God, I've had full recovery in that eye. And so he said, I really don't want you ever wearing gas permeable contacts again, because I believe that's what caused this. And by wearing gas permeable contacts, you run the risk that it could happen again. And I thought, I don't know, I don't want to go through anything like this again, because I lived in fear that that could happen to my right eye while the left eye was in limbo. Everything that, you know, when it rains, it pours. My mother was in a nursing home right across the street. Your mind starts to run wild about what if this happens with my right eye and I will be blind as a bat. I can't see anything. I mean, literally nothing. Literally nothing. But I'm thankful to God, nothing like that happened. My eye dried out. But Dr. Tran said, I don't want you wearing a gas permeable contact in your eyes anymore, because you run the risk of this happening again. So he had me get fitted with what's called a scleral contact lens for the left eye. And I continued to wear the gas permeable in the right, because we were having to do this in stages. And then lo and behold, the 9 months that I had put the steroid eye drops in the left eye caused the left eye to form severe, well, not severe, but pretty far along cataracts. And I didn't even know what had happened. I didn't know, okay, have I had a tear again, and it's just not as severe, because it was very cloudy. Of course, when I went in for my regular, he let me go for 9 months. He said, I think you're safe. We can let you go for 9 months now. So when I go back in, I don't know, approximately February of 2022, he took one look and he said, oh, you got cataract now in your left eye. And he said that was a result from the steroid eye drop use for all those months, because I barely have any cataract at all in the right eye. So we had to schedule cataract surgery. I had that done in June of 2022. That pushed back all of this progression. So after that period, I looked to be fitted. I looked to be fitted with a scleral contact. Both for, now scleral, I'll distinguish that from the contacts I'm about to show you in a moment. That's a special type of contact that sits on the scleral of the eye, which is not the cornea. And you fill it full of fluid, and it will soothe the eye throughout the day. And I did successfully get fitted with a scleral contact for the left eye. Now, this is not often done, and so it takes 3 weeks to bring in the contacts. They come in from Amsterdam, and then you see if they'll fit, and then you fine tune them and so forth, and then if you need to reorder, it's 3 weeks. Those, by comparison to what I'm about to tell you about, you can get for the low price of $750. But hey, when you're talking about my vision, I want whatever is going to work and not run the risk of me eventually needing a cornea transplant, which was certainly seeming like a possibility given what had happened earlier when that tore. So I get fitted with the left contact, and so that was supposed to be the more challenging of the two. Okay, that was supposed to be the more challenging of the two. So then we go to try to fit me for the right eye. And again, you're talking about this 3 week process, order. Okay, we need to tweak it, send it. And I had gone through about 4 iterations of that, and I mean, absolutely no progress whatsoever with the right eye, none. The vision was, when the contact would go in, it would be almost as if nothing happened. And so that's when, and this is where I'm about to start praising Baylor University. I know I had to lay all of that out to lead you up to where we are. Sorry for the length. If you turn, I guess if you're still watching, you're at least curious. That's when Dr. Tran, and again, he's got that leading edge technology knowledge, and I'm so thankful. I really believe God delivered me to Dr. Tran. I believe that with all of my heart. And he said, Robert, he said, if you're willing to do this, he said, we can send you to Baylor University Medical Center. Their ophthalmology department is absolutely the top, the best in the world. Those were his words. I'm quoting his words. They are the best in the world. He said, we could trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. And he said, but we don't have their technology because we rarely would encounter a patient like you. He readily admitted, I am by far his most complicated patient in his career. And so I said, I want to do it then. And at Baylor, their technology, it's called a PROSE contact lens, P-R-O-S-E. And we're going to give you the link for Baylor University's medical center, specifically their ophthalmology department. And so I contacted them, and the process, here's the way the process works. You get set up, and then you go there, and you have to spend basically 9 working days, okay? Because when we talk about precision, when they are evaluating, well, first you have to go for an evaluation to make sure you would be a good candidate. I did that back in February of this year. Fortunately, not only was I a good candidate, I was chomping at the bit to get this done because the eyesight, just with what she was experimenting with that she had in-house, was phenomenal. And so I'm very anxious to get this done. And so because of insurance, and by the way, let me say this, whereas the scleral contacts are not covered by insurance, the PROSE contacts are considered prosthetic devices. And so it is covered by insurance, which does come in handy because I will let you know the cost of these contacts is $11,000. But obviously you're not paying $11,000 for one set of contact lenses. As I'm going to explain to you now, and that's why I've been away in Texas, specifically in Houston, going to Baylor University's medical center, you get scheduled for 9 working days where you come in and excuse me, and typically your morning appointment evaluates, in my case, the first day's lens, the first day I arrived, because they already knew, okay, let's order this set of lenses for him to get started with. And they evaluate it. Then you wear them for about 3.5 hours, and you come back in, typically at 1 o'clock, for your afternoon appointment, because they must have the order for the next day's PROSE lenses in no later than 2:30. Okay, because they're going to be FedExing, and they're FedEx to Boston. And so they put the order in for the next day's lenses. They arrive, you show up at 10 a.m. for the second iteration, if you will. And that process repeats itself because they are fine-tuning this to such a degree. Now hear what I'm saying. They are fine-tuning this to such a degree that the lens increments that they are changing them in are in micron meters. If those of you didn't maybe take physics, that is 1/1000th of a millimeter. And a millimeter itself is quite small. I'll show you the lenses I now have in just a moment, and we're going to demonstrate putting them in. But the diameter of my contact lenses that I now have, they're not in my eyes now. I'm blind as a bat even as I'm looking into this camera. But they are 19.5 millimeters, which would be 19,500 micron meters, and yet they are fine-tuning to such a degree that they're going to alter the next day's pair. And I would hear her say, okay, at 4 o'clock, because she's writing down notes at 4 o'clock, that would be the 4 o'clock position on the cornea, and she would basically say we're going to need to alter it, and she didn't tell me how many microns, but I mean, when I tell you their technology is unreal, and the way they're able to fine-tune this stuff, it's phenomenal. And so you go through that process, and the weekend is very important because that's the time you're going to wear the pair that you got that Friday all during the weekend. And as she explained to me, Monday typically is when you may encounter a little bit of problems because you've had the same contact in, and if it's not a perfect fit, you may have a little bit of irritation. And I did. And so Monday's lenses were evaluated and ordered for Tuesday. By Tuesdays, we had it. She said, this is good. And so consequently, I was able to be released the following Wednesday, which was actually 2 days early. But they don't guarantee that. They say it could take the full 9 working days. And I booked a hotel room for that full 9 days and, wound up only having to spend 7 nights there. But at any rate, I got fitted for my PROSE contact lenses, P-R-O-S-E. And we're going to give a little demonstration today of and I'll explain why I've gone through all this as we are right near the end of the video. But I'm going to demonstrate today, and I'm going to try to lower the camera because we're going to try to take a look at actually putting them in. I may have to go a little lower on the stand because I'm not sure. I'll zoom out a tad. Nope. Let's see. That should be good enough. All right. This is the container that they're stored in, and they will be overnight, or at least a minimum of 6 hours, in a solution that is called Clear Care, and I have the bottle of Clear Care here. Many who wear contacts will be quite familiar with this. Let me just say one thing. You need to get the Clear Care that does not have the Hydroglide. So be real particular if you're ordering this stuff. Make sure you get the brand that, not the brand, but the variety that does not have the Hydroglide. Both my ophthalmologists in Baton Rouge as well as there in Houston told me you don't want the Hydroglide. So this is the container that they're contained in. I'm going to open it on up. I have a towel beneath here, and I'm going to pour out the solution. In the bottom of it, there is a little tiny, I call it charcoal, but that's what activates the bubbling sensation that takes care of not only cleaning these things, but killing off any problematic matter. Now, when you buy the Clear Care, it will come with its own case that has the charcoal. Forgive me on charcoal, it's probably not what it's technically, but it'll do. But those cases are much smaller than the case for the PROSE contacts. So what you have to do is you take the cage that has the charcoal and you just pull the charcoal out and you put it in this container, because the case that you get, which is quite large, and you can reorder cases, you can reorder anything, does not have the charcoal protruding at the bottom the way the case that you buy it on the Clear Care will. So let us open up. We start with the left, and you're now going to see, I'll put it real close to the camera, it's the size of a nickel. And what you do is there is a plunger, and you're not going to get it in if you don't use this plunger, I can tell you right now. Plus, that's what you're told to do. I like to start with the left eye. I find it a little easier than the right. And so you balance the lens on the plunger, okay? It also has 2 little black dots. The left one has 2 little black dots. The right one has 1 little black dot. And you align that at the 12 o'clock position. That's how precise they are about, remember those measurements that I told you? 4 o'clock and so forth. So you get this black dot lined up at the 12 o'clock position. You then take this solution. Well, I'm sorry, I messed up. We're going to start from scratch. I got a little carried away. You begin by taking this solution, which is called unique pH, okay? And you hold the contact in the palm of your hand, you cuff your hand, you pour around the contact, you take your index finger and your middle finger, and you circulate around on that contact. And by the way, you definitely wash your hands, and trust me, I did, before you do any of this. I washed my hands immediately prior to us starting this video, and I certainly did not touch anything. The camera was already set up and everything. You did see me reach and grab for the deal there, the stand, but okay, now let's balance it back. the 12 o'clock position. Keep the contact, I need to in my right, keep the plunger rather in the right hand. We're going to fill this up. It takes approximately 17 drops, give or take, and you want to form a dome on it. You want to form a dome because that's what's going to make this transition into the eye so seamless. All right, now, you then look straight down with your chin up against your chest. Chin against the chest, and this is critical. You have to take your left index finger, lift your eyebrow up and lift it high. Grab the thumb, grab your lower eyebrow, because you have got to get maximum spread on this, because this thing's going in. It literally is the size of your eye, just about. We're not talking about a small contact here. So take the index finger, lift the eyebrow all the way up. Same thing for the the right thumb. Look down and just gently guide it. And when you feel that's soothing, and that will stay entrapped all day. I'm now in, and boy, what a contrast, the left eye versus the right eye, because the right eye does not have the benefit of the contact yet. So let's proceed on to the right contact. I can see now, I can see clearly now, my contacts are in, or contact. Same process, cuff your hand, take the unique pH. Now she said this was not absolutely required, but she recommends it, and so if she recommends it, we're gonna do it, because my eyes mean too much to me. And so we just circulate it around, then follow that up with the permalens, pour it into the palm, circulate it around. Okay. I had to briefly reposition the camera because I could just tell you weren't going to be able to see anything. So we're going to repeat the process now with the the right eye. Cuff the hand, start with the unique pH, put some in, 2 fingers, circular motion. Follow that up with the permalens solution. Again, 2 fingers, circular motion. And I find the right eye to be a little bit more challenging than the left, simply because they want you to use the left hand for putting in the left contact. But I can only tell you that I am very right dominated in everything. And the ophthalmologist wound up telling me that, look, it's okay for you to use your right hand. As you can tell, I can hold it fairly steady. In fact, extremely steady, but what I just couldn't easily manipulate with my left hand, and then using the right hand to pull the eyelids back. So I have, as a result, always used the right hand. So let's go forward with this now. Again, separate very widely, chin up, guide. There we go. I'm gonna open in a second. Voila! 20/20 vision in both eyes. So now we have very little left to do. And as you can tell, it's not a long process. Obviously, we'll screw the lids back on these 2 solutions. And there's only 2 more little things to do. Number 1, these are alcohol prep pads. You take it, open it up, because that's what you use to wipe down the plunger to kill off any problematic substance that just might linger around on it. So voila, and let me find where I put the case. There it is, for this plunger. And it's now put away. Now there's one last step, although I have found this to be rarely a problem, and you need a mirror for this, and I like to use an magnified one. There we go. But you take a close-up look to make sure there's not an air bubble. And there we go, I like to put my hand over so I can recognize, is it a bubble or is it, you know, a light ray? And I can just tell you there are no air bubbles. Oops, there is. There is an air bubble in this right eye. Well, I'll tell you, that's something, because that's something I almost never have, but I've got one this time. I'll try to get as close as I can to the camera. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but it's right in the lower, at about the 5 o'clock position. I don't know if you can see it or not. But I tell you what, that's actually a good thing, because I was going to come back later and demonstrate the removal, but since I have an air bubble, we'll remove it now, because we got to put it back in. Now, I've only had this happen maybe twice, but that is that last step, and it is important. As great as the vision looks, you don't want an air bubble in there, okay? And we've got one. So taking it out is not that difficult. You use a much smaller plunger for that. You put one, I'd already screwed the lid in. You can tell how confident I am that there would be no air bubble, but in a way, I guess it's good we had one, because it gives the chance for me to demonstrate removal. I don't have to come back 10 hours from now, or 12 hours. And so you just lift up there, pull down here. Put it in the lower part, wiggle it a little, and out it comes. It comes out very easily. In fact, it comes out so smoothly, so easily, but that was even more so the case there, because we did have a slight air bubble, which will give us an opportunity to repeat the process, and also was good for demonstration purposes, so that, you know, if you wind up, and I'll explain that shortly, before I did this whole thing. And we remember, unique pH first, double finger. Probably wouldn't have to repeat this process, but I will for educational purposes anyway. Then the Permalens, Puralens, y'all forgive me. All I know is it's what feels so good to the eye all day long. Because once you have filled this thing and don't get an air bubble, that stuff soothes the eye all day long, and it feels good. And if any allergen flies in, unlike with those gas permeables that would make you drop to your knees from the pain, these things are protecting the precious. I'm looking for that little black dot. It's not as easy to see in here. There it is. Because we got to line that, remember, at the 12 o'clock position. And let's refill it. By filling it up and having that dome, you minimize the chance of an air bubble. And I think I've been putting them in for about 10 days now, and I believe that may have been the first air bubble I had. But we don't need to be leaving it in there with an air bubble. Now, I'm just wiping there to get dry. Make sure we still got a dome. Put another drop just to be sure. Separate very widely. Lean down, chin fully. All right, back in. Oh, it looks so good, but we're gonna have to re-examine, make sure we don't have the air bubble. And no air bubble. So it did take a second time, but I'm happy to say that there is no air bubble this time. So let me wrap this video up by saying that the reason for doing all of this is because, from what I'm told, a lot of doctors aren't aware of this. And so I believe knowledge is powerful. And I know at Baylor they said they try to get the word out that this is an available avenue for those who have the type problem I do, which is post-RK, even though my RK was done 29 years ago. I think I'm doing, no, it's longer than that, 39 years ago. Or someone with severe dry eye. And again, we're going to give you the link for Baylor University Medical Center's program, their ophthalmology department. Obviously, I'm sure you know it goes without saying that I have nothing but praise and adoration for these folk, because not only have they given me 20/20 vision in both eyes, but also because I don't have to start, well, I still will look at the pollen count, but if it's up, say 10 or 11, most times I try to avoid going outdoors. When I was wearing those gas permeable contacts, it's absolutely unbearable. And now it's not an issue. So this was a kind of a point of personal privilege for this sound off feature. We'll resume our usual focus on Louisiana governmental operations, but I wanted to just break away and do this one special because I am so thrilled with the fine folks at Baylor University Medical Center and what they've been able to do for me and my eyes. And so if you know of anyone who may be like me, because I know I'm certainly not the only one who had RK surgery when it first came out in the mid-'80s, feel free to send this video on to them and let them know about the tremendous capabilities of the fine doctors at the Baylor University Medical Center and their ophthalmology department. So once again, this is Robert Burns thanking all of our loyal viewers, and we look forward to seeing you for the next Sound Off Louisiana feature. Thank you so much.